Welcome to No Set Definition. This podcast where success has no single meaning. You define it, you set it, and you call it.
Because success, let's face it, is not a one-size-fits-all. It changes, evolves, and it looks different for everyone.
And on this amazing show, we don't tell you what success should be. You tell us what success means to you. Everyone is a little different, and everyone has their own success.
That's why there's no set definition, because we ask people to share what success means to them in their own words through their own experiences.
So let's begin.
So hello, everybody. We have my good friend here, Ken. A lot of people, you will know who he is. He has won many, many awards. He is an amazing conductor. And he was teaching me, slicing air is a very unique practice. And he was telling me all about as a successful entrepreneur, a successful conductor. It doesn't take one day to become who he is. He has to take a lot of practice and a lot of grit to actually become where he is today. So I just love to hear his story and where he come from and all the stuff that he has to learn and overcome to become who he is today, and actually listen to him and what success look like to him and his definition of what's happiness, success, and famous.
Well, good morning, everybody.
Yeah, that was like a mouthful. I feel like it was like full on.
So too much?
No, it's great. I can, because a lot of us don't know what a conductor does. Like Alex said, it looks like you're slicing air, but obviously there's so much technique to it. How do you even get into a job like that and be like, I'm going to be a conductor one day?
Well, conductors, to be honest, there's no real way to become a conductor, to be honest. Of course, I took the traditional route, which was going to school, learning the technique of conducting, and then, doing my dues from, being an assistant conductor and working my way up. But in the conducting world, you have many people who are just fantastic musicians, and, they become conductors. And conductors really, in my personal view today, is that a conductor is really somebody who's a leader, who can really lead the ensemble. He or she knows more than the orchestra put together. So the person has to be, I think, number one, a very exceptional musician. But number two, I think the person has to be a very good psychologist.
Do you have to have rhythm?
Yeah, rhythm, yes. For sure, you have to have good rhythm, you have to have good musicality. Of all that, I think that's about 30-40%. But I think being in a rehearsal setting, I think it's about 60% psychology. How do you talk to people who are older than you, who have, played under fantastic conductors? Or how do you talk to a man versus how you talk to a woman? Because I think, for me to talk to a man might be, hey, what's up, it's easier. But whereas you talk to a lady, you have to not think, but then you have to be very respectful at times too, to be certain that, you don't come across anything being offensive, because I feel, you never know what a man or a woman or anybody had gone through in the morning before the rehearsal, right? So, some people can be ultra sensitive, and, there have been instances where, well, not to me, but there has been instances where I've seen rehearsals where people blew up at each other, and that's the last thing you really want to have.
No, that'd be a fiery orchestra.
For sure. And I picked up what you can say is psychology is like relationship management as well, but understanding how to put together a team, but really be respectful. And a lot of us coming from, I'm not a musician and I don't really know much about music. I mean, I listen to it, but we always hear, musicians and has also different kind of personality as well, right? Is it the fame? Is it because they're so talented, they're so focused on producing their music, then perhaps the personality, like how do we be respectful, but also make sure that their musical talent also come out as well, right?
Yeah.
So as an outsider, I love to know more about what's the inside scoop.
Well, I think in conducting world, I think it's it's very definitely very different from 80 or even 100 years ago, Most of the orchestras back 100 years ago were primarily all men. You would not see, you would very seldomly ever see a woman in the orchestra maybe 100 years ago. Um, now that, all the orchestra had women in it, I think the last orchestra to start admitting women with the Vienna Philharmonic, the most famous orchestra. And so I had an interesting conversation with one of the musicians there, and I asked him, are you guys just being sexist or what, and said no. He said, it's not that, and he said, there's one thing about what we like is keeping it consistent, because going from a rehearsal into a performance, they want to try to keep things as much consistency as they can. And so he, I mean, I'm just repeating what he says. So he was saying, with women, in his personal view, it's that, women are, when they're sensitive, they are, they can react very differently. Whereas men, to be honest, you come in and, they perform and they kind of keep it. But he did say when women are on the top of their game, they're a much better musician than the men.
He just saved himself by saying that, because I was just the pounce on them, because I was thinking that, maybe we're a little bit more emotional, but wouldn't that make you a better musician? Because isn't like the whole idea of doing, like, being a talented musician, isn't it tied to your emotions? Like, because like when you see play concert piano, or they're like into it and they're like feeling,
and they're really into it. Yes, yeah. I mean, I'm not trying to say myself, but I mean, this is what the Vienna Philharmonic people said to me back in the days. But now I feel, it's the same thing as conductors, because conductors is technically seen as a very male-driven job, But nowadays,
being a female conductor, are there any or many?
Oh, there are. Like right now, this generation, there's a lot of female conductor coming out. And I'll be very honest right now is that there's a lot of opportunity for women out there. And because they, for example, the National Arts Center Orchestra in Canada, their programming is about half women, half men for conductors, which is great. But I have heard some complaints from it, because they say that, just because, we're trying to allocate 50% for women conductors, the quality has not, been sustained for the orchestra. So, I mean, I understand, it's like that United Airlines. Do you remember when United Airlines said, we're going to start hiring based on, how do you say, multicultural, ensuring that we have representation in every country or whatever. But I think right now the problem is that as a person who buys a ticket on United Airlines, I want to be that person, knowing that I have the best pilots, piloting the flight. Whereas, it's not somebody who's of this race or something. So, I mean, I gotta be honest, like, frankly, I have seen lots of really wonderful women conductors. And women conductors, for me, I some of the most beautiful conductors I've seen are by women conductors. But, to be honest, it's women, I feel sometimes are in a little bit of a disadvantage in this world of being a conductor, because I think women have it more difficult than men, and I have to say that the ones that I've seen that make it into the the top elite, they're phenomenal. They are just absolute. How would I say? Absolute
top
driven people, and it's very inspiring to watch when you see these people up there.
I'm glad you brought that up. I got to interrupt you, Jennifer, because I was very passionate listening to what Ken have to say about women in the traditional field is the struggles. And he brought up a really amazing point is the struggle that we are at a disadvantage. And it's because the tradition is men. But right now, I think there's a lot of different fields, especially I come from the wealth side. So in private wealth, there's a lot of struggle for women to actually go to where they are, especially the portfolio management side, and also in management and upper management, right? You do not see many female CEOs out there. The ratio just drops and drops. It's because, just like you mentioned, there's a disadvantage, right? And we have to struggle really, really hard, and to have champions to support us, to have champions who believe in us and the ability to go where we are. And when you mention about a female conductor, we should just simply say conductors.
Conductors,
right? No, not male or female, but based on the quality of who they are and the grit and the ability for them to climb up, right? It's not chairman or chairperson, chairwoman, just chair, right? Not a woman CEO or just a CEO. So,
but it's very funny we talk about this because just maybe a couple months ago, Japan finally had their first female prime minister, right? And so if you think about that, because, I studied conducting in Japan, which is a very male-driven society. And so, for them now to be having a female prime minister is really like, wow, this is, there's something changing in society. And this is why, I remember when Brazil had the female president, and, you see that sometimes that the females who have led as leaders, they do a much better job. And why is that? We don't know. There's something, I don't know what it is that I find that female probably have a more nurturing feeling towards society, I find, because, it's very interesting to see male, because we're all driven by ego. We're all driven by what we want to do. But female, there's also a nurturing act, which is very natural to them, that I find that if they take that and they do it toward their society, it's very interesting that, you see how Brazil had pumped up so much within that short time that the female president was there. But then again, you look at Asia. Asia has been primarily a very, very male-driven society. Yeah.
Well, this
I saw Kim Rumping. Go ahead, Jennifer.
Yeah. This podcast is about unsung success, which is a big part, not just obviously women, but women are a big part of that, because sometimes we don't get the credit that we deserve.
Oh, absolutely.
And also don't as well. And it's just interesting because I was watching a thing related to the music industry, and it was someone today on a podcast, and they were talking about, like, I can't remember who it was, but it was his top producer, and he said, bands don't fail because they're not seen. And he's like, music people think that it's like, oh, it's luck, it's you need a big break. He says the reason they're successful is the fact that you have to be unseen for so many years. And a lot of people can't stand that not being visible and being invisible. And so she was saying that the people you see that make it are because they were able to withstand that invisibility for so long, which will break you down all the time until you get that little bit of credit. And so, Ken, I feel like for you too, like, a conductor, we don't necessarily think about the conductor, we think about the orchestra. But you are the important part. Well, they're all important, but you're important because you're guiding them to create these beautiful masterpieces.
Yeah, I wouldn't call myself successful, but I mean, definitely a lot of people say, "Oh, Ken, you're so lucky you had the break," and that kind of ticks me a little bit, because I've always said to them, yes, I'm lucky, but I really work hard for my luck, and you don't know how much blood and sweat, like, you only see the tip of the iceberg. You don't see what's underneath, and how much failure I've gone through. I mean, I was telling some colleagues of mine about how many times I have failed in Japan as a audition, for even just for a master class. I failed so many times, and I think it's being in Japan in that kind of society, I began to learn what is resilience, and I think resilience is really the key to success today. I find that a lot of younger people, especially the Gen Z, the resilience isn't there. I mean, I'll just give you an example because, I'm not, I love one of my goddaughters so much. And she called me the other day and she's like, hey, Uncle Ken, I want to do an internship next summer, and I'm hoping to do it with, I'm not going to name the company, but I want to do it with this company. And I said, okay. And she goes, the boss, can you call? And of course, this boss is really top notch. He's the definition of success in Canada for sure. And then after I just made a phone call and he's like, absolutely, give me the resume, text it to me. And then he gave it to his, one of his team. And then she gets an interview right away. And I'm just like, I'm thinking afterwards, I'm like, should I even be doing this for her? Because, how is she going to build resilience? How is she going to know what failure feels like, And like right now, she just gets an automatic door into this internship. And so I began to think, because for me, when I was in Japan, I had to struggle through so many barriers. I was not Japanese. I couldn't read Japanese. I couldn't even understand Japanese. And there I am in a Japanese culture, which is very, very adamant about their own culture, right? And so, now they're more friendly. Back in the days, the Chinese and Korean and English were not there. It was only Japanese. And so for me, that struggle, even just being there to try to rent an apartment. You know how difficult it was to rent an apartment as a foreigner in Japan. I had to go to 25 different real estate agencies, all of them, until the last one rejected me just because I was a foreigner. And so, this is for me like, wow, these things kind of makes you give, how do you say, make you stronger, and
Builds character.
they build character of who you are. And so right now, I can go on working for hours and hours without any problem. But I just, I find that right now the resilience part is really something that we might be lacking in our society today.
Yeah, and people want to earn it or not even that, work on it. Like, people don't realize, like, I have a question for you. How many hours do you spend studying the music before you even get on the stage?
Oh, you know what? Thank you so much for mentioning that because, I would actually sometimes be studying the piece now. I mean, before I used to be very last minute, which is not good. I mean, I burned myself, and I failed many times. But I mean, now I would even take up to, depending on when the orchestra gave me the music, but sometimes I would be up 6 months before to start learning the piece, because it's something you have to digest into your body, and your movements and everything, all coordination are all not just by thinking how you're going to do this and that. It has to be really felt with sincerity. And I think this is the thing about being a leader as, I mean, I can try to be a leader of Bank of Montreal, for example, and I can try to do this by reading a book. It's not that way. There are so many processes and so many things to learn that lead to that. And I think success, I'm lucky. I worked hard. I would say success really falls on three things. I think it falls on discipline, whether you can keep a consistency in what you do. Number two is actually a focus. I find focus is very difficult right now. And the last one is, of course, hard work. I mean, you're passionate about it. How do you keep the passion going, And that I feel is it's very crucial to success today. And I think maybe last time we talked about this, I think success falls, under three things. Like, people define success by three things. Number one, money. Number two, fame. And number three, happiness. I think these three things define, in people's mind, they define happiness. But how many people do you really know have three out of three? I think many have 2 out of 3, but not 3 out of 3. But again, some people don't want the fame, right? So you never know, right?
But that's the thing. I'm glad you mentioned how long you spend on the music, because again, we see you when you're at a concert, but we didn't see all that work. We're just like, oh, he's there. But we didn't see all those hours that you spent late at night, like studying the music. And that's the thing, is like, as a society, we just think, oh, they're successful or they're lucky, they're standing up there. It's like, but you didn't see all the work. It's like watching the athletes at the Olympics, and you're like, oh, they make it look so easy, but they've been working hard.
I got to know one lady who I hope you will interview one day. It's Alexa Liu. She was probably the first Canadian champion for snowboarder, but the first snowboarder to represent Canada at the Olympics, Alexa Liu. And now she became the Richmond City Councillor. And I don't know, I think maybe she might run for mayor next year, of Richmond. But, because Malcolm Brody said he's not running anymore. But I remembered asking her, I said, what was your training like? Because I'm always curious about the training of somebody.
Of an athlete,
exactly. And as an athlete, she goes, Ken, it was so hard. She said, even they have a regiment, a schedule of all the practices and everything. They also have to follow a specific diet. Imagine you can't eat this, you can't eat that, you can't do this, you can't do that. Or it's very difficult. And when I heard what she had to go through, I was like, wow, hats off to you, because all we see on TV is, boom, to the finish line. But there is so much behind that, that we don't realize. Yeah.
Remember, Ken, there's a Chinese saying, 1 minute on stage is 10 years of practice. Before that, right? So the ability and the grit and the patience, just like you said, the struggles to become to who you are, it's definitely define who you are. And that's what you're saying, for success. Is that fame, right? Is that money? And then whether they're happy or not, right? Yeah. So that's something that we always struggle with. And I think that's what the definition of the unsung success, right? Like, how do you define yourself to make sure that you keep the passion going? And then where's the next level, right? Of where you want to be.
I think it's interesting. I mean, have you guys really read anything about Warren Buffett? And if you look at how he lives his life, he lives so frugal. He drives a really old Cadillac, and he goes to McDonald's, lives in the same house. Is he famous? Yeah, he's famous. Is he wealthy? Oh, I'm sure he's wealthy. But then you look at him, is he really happy? Yeah, maybe, but
maybe he'll free.
Yeah, I mean, we don't know, right? But does he come across as a happy person? No, he comes across as a very intellectual person. He's very when you hear him talk on stage, he's very, very focused. But then have you ever heard him talk about his happiness with his family or anything? Not really.
A couple of times he mentioned on his house. So I read, I come from the wealth side, so I know a little bit more about him. But he mentioned about his home, where he's actually stayed, where he's some home. All the amazing memories that he creates. And so it's actually not, he said it's his best investment yet. But when we compare the money that the appreciation of the home versus the appreciation of, like I said, S&P 500, his home is actually, the investment wise, the performance is actually way below the S&P 500. But he defined his home as his best investment yet to date is his memory with his family, right? So that's something that when I was reading about it, I was like, wow, that is a very well put together and also very meaningful because happiness on the outside, sometimes we don't talk about as much, especially perhaps he's at that higher fame. He might not want to talk about his happiness as much, right?
Yeah.
Whereby some people are more liberal to share your happiness with the
Others.
world, right?
Yeah.
So that I think depends on his personality. And when I listen to him, his personality is very intellectual. So you just listen to it, but he doesn't talk more than just that.
No.
That's it. Yeah.
All three. But before we go, I'll put this out here. I'm going to get deep for a second. I was just thinking about this. It doesn't matter if you're successful or not. I think happiness itself is, and people can argue with me this, but I think it's something that it's hard to be happy every single day. I don't think anyone has it solved. I don't think there's anyone out there that's like, I am so happy every single day of my life.
It's very hard.
I think happiness is a myth. I think it's a state of mind that you need to have. But again, you got to work on it. You can't just be like waking up expecting to be happy.
Yeah.
You have to make yourself happy, I find, and you have to be content with what you have. I think, at my situation, where I am conducting a lot of B orchestras, I mean, of course I want to conduct to A orchestra, but I'm so blessed that I'm conducting a lot of these great B orchestras, I mean, if you're going to Japan or you're going to China, you're going to, Boston, wherever, it's just really blessed. But I think everybody defines success in a different way.
Correct. And then when you mentioned, Jen, about, you can't be happy all the time, is you have to know a little bit of sadness to actually make happiness shine out as well, right? So it's a spectrum of your emotions. You make sure you have an equilibrium of that emotions. A little bit more happiness, less sadness, right? Less anger, but a little bit more content to find the equilibrium. For sure.
What a great way to end. I've been and forever, but we appreciate you coming on to our podcast, Unsung Success. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
We're going to work on trying to get all three: fame, happiness,
And money. Monetary.
Monetary, yes.
Awesome. Thanks, Ben. This has been good.
Well,
Cheers.
Conversations like this remind us why this podcast exists. Because let's face it, there's really no set definition of success.
And it's really your path, your timing, and really your vision.
If this episode resonated with you, share it with someone who might need to hear it.
Make sure to follow No Set Definition wherever you listen to podcasts.
Until next time.
Thank you.